Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to more CSGO news. As always, hope you guys had great weekends, and welcome back. We got plenty of stories. There'll be timestamp down below. Let's hop into our first one. You saw it in the title. We might have seen this past weekend, or we might have seen part of the worst event ever broadcasted in CSGO or organized. Now, I also want to start off by saying, yes, the iBuyPower name was on this event, but it was not the same event organizer as the people who were actually running the event itself. That was actually Ult Clothing Company, so it's an esports clothing company. Yes, it's clearly the fault of both the organizer and as well the iBuyPower brand itself for this lack of organization, but it was pretty astounding to see the results of what could possibly be the worst event we've ever seen, at least for quite some time in CSGO. Of course, the first thing that was actually most notable, PCs randomly turning off, power cords being unplugged. Alongside that, an obvious lack of noise-canceling headsets was actually flaunted and talked about by many teams out there, both Ghost Gaming, also Crims from Fnatic. We're talking about this, a lack of noise-canceling headsets at a CSGO event, and this was an immediate result as well. We saw during it, if you guys did watch a few of the matches or got to see at least some of them, there were clear and obvious moments, at least a few that I could point out, where yes, the crowd reactions definitely caused a reaction of the players, which you never want to see. But here is actually Steel. He actually was tweeting out some great things about, first of all, the noise canceling headsets. Alongside that, the games that were actually not streamed or the PCs shut down during some of these games, a lot of these games also had to be re-simulated by the players themselves. So here are a couple of clips of that being played out.
To die. Okay, Kissa, get on the bench. Jump on the bench.
Someone said go all. Someone said go all.
Okay, I'm gonna be banana. I'll go to banana to kill Nick.
I have a kid.
Jason? Okay, Nick plant and then someone kills me.
So you hate to see it, right? I mean, yes, it can be comedic watching from our standpoint. I feel really bad for the people who, one, actually bought tickets for the entire event, also who traveled for this event. It was actually iBuyPower who announced day one ticket refunds. That's a great thing. Alongside that, though, of course, broadcasting issues, no GOTV replays as well, or broadcast for a few of the games, and also even a few of the day two matchups were not actually streamed themselves. I know Ghost, I know FaZe, a couple other teams as well. I think there were 2 matches at least that were not actually streamed. On top of that, actually only one source, and also a tweet out there. Apparently a shooting threat was issued. It was not confirmed. At one point actually evacuating all the people out there. And then very lastly, security issues. It was actually Decay tweeting out about this. Apparently iBuyPower staff actually not checking bags. iBuyPower actually responded to that tweet saying yes, they were checking bags, although there were several people. If you go through the entire thread, I'll link the tweet down below for all of you, the actual people bringing in the bags saying no, you didn't check my bag. So I'm going to go on and lean towards the side of Decay, and what he hears, guys, the security was probably subpar for the event. Overall, all in all, a pretty poor put on event, but also the results I'm going to take with a grain of salt, but the results were nonetheless very shocking to see. It was actually, of course, I'll just skip right to the playoffs, guys. The biggest surprise at a group stage was FaZe not making it through, but based off what we saw from FaZe, I think the guys had I don't know, it didn't seem too serious. It was actually at one point in time their own fitness, their actual nutritionists live streaming some of the matches because there was no GOTV. If you guys actually watched that full thing, I'll link the clip down below, but it was actually a live stream on Twitter, so there might not be a replay of that. They seem to be joking around quite a bit, not taking it too seriously, as many of the teams were throughout group stages as well as throughout day 2 matchups. So like I said, take it with a grain of salt, but there still were some huge upsets. I'll name the 2 biggest things I saw, guys. Of course, Ghost Gaming finally confirming Freakazoid in place of Sabrosa. You guys know I'm a huge fanboy of this roster, and I'm excited to see where they can go with this new roster as well, with Freakazoid being the newest addition. They did make it out of groups and actually beat FaZe Clan to do so in only a best of 1, but still, nonetheless, in his first appearance with that roster, a pretty solid success there, given the state of this tournament and what these guys had to go through. The most important thing throughout playoffs, though, guys, some pretty solid matchups. I would say the best of 3s were pretty well decided, including the grand finals, which once again, I know, pretty big surprise, right? Our first big tournament of 2019, and it's none other than Liquid and Astralis meeting back up in the finals. This time, though, for the first time in 11 matchups, matchups of best of 3s or best of 5s, it's actually Liquid taking down Astralis. And I will say one thing, yes, might take this tournament as a scuffed victory, but still, this roster newly with Stewie2K is looking pretty darn scary. I will not lie. I think, of course, Nafly locking down his HLTV MVP award, but I would say besides him, Stewie looked pretty darn phenomenal, especially on Dust 2. Definitely had a lot of clutch plays. I would say right behind Naf, he is the reason why they won this series, and I would say halfway convincingly, and it's crazy to see as well. Again, the first time ever since the beginning of 2018, of course, with a little bit of a changed roster. This is the first time in best of 3/best of 5 matchups these guys have actually taken down Astralis. Yes, there's people out there saying Astralis is not trying to leak all of their best strats because the major's right around the corner. Nonetheless, though, a huge victory for Liquid, and this is already still kind of with a small roster change, still continuing to be the best North American roster we will ever see. And for this past weekend, yes, it's kind of ironic it being a North American tournament. It was a pretty bad tournament. No one's going to deny that, but it was North America beating Europe, and it's a great start to 2019 nonetheless, and definitely seeing some great things out of these rosters. I'm very excited to see what we see out of these guys, of course, in a few weeks' time when the major comes, and it really, truly does matter. And also finalized this past weekend was, of course, our HLTV top 20 list, and no surprise to see Device at number 2 and s1mple as our best player of 2018. I'll give you guys the full list and some fun facts. If you guys wanted fun facts, actually 9 teams being listed inside the top 20, only 1 full team. Surprise, surprise, it actually was Astralis, having all 5 members inside that. Alongside that, actually going to be FaZe, Mousesports, and Liquid, who all had 3 members inside the list. And also a very fun fact, or well, not very fun if you're Brazilian, for the first time since 2015, only 1 Brazilian on that list, that being coldzera, ever since 2015. And bouncing to our next story, guys, another thing that's not happened since 2015, that's actually Mousesports not making the major. This last weekend, of course, finalized the CIS as well as the European minors, and we saw some very shocking things. And I already let's just get it out there, okay? I've seen enough comments saying the North American minor, every minor compared to Europe is so weak. We get it, guys, but to say the least, this European minor was literally it seemed like a premier tournament in itself, lasting all weekend long, several back and forths, including Team Vitality going to match point several times, and several players out there I have to mention that definitely stood out on those rosters. Of course, Hunter being a cousin of Nico, playing for Team Valiance. We also had ZywOo doing as he does, carrying that team. A subtle mention as well, worth mentioning, MBK to me really stood out this past weekend. And very lastly, it was actually Valde. And 2 of the players I did mention in those 4 tried their best to carry those rosters, but this could not succeed. But those are the 4 members for me. You guys can comment down below who you think stood out this past weekend. There were so many players at this event that certainly lived up to the hype and definitely brought their A game, but it just was not enough for some teams out there like Mousesports. Surprisingly enough, it was actually Mousesports not even making top 4, going out in group stage to a best of 3 to Team Valiance. It was an amazing series, and quite frankly, actually pretty one-sided those last 2 maps for Team Valiance, looking absolutely insane. A guy like Nexa saying on HLTV they outstratted every team possible. Probably not the best strategy for some teams out there, certainly working for Team Valiance, at least early on for these guys, looking incredible throughout that series as well. Unfortunately enough, they met their demise to teams like ENCE, a best of 3 that went to map 3. I wouldn't say particularly close. I think ENCE played very well that series, and unfortunately enough, their run, that being Team Valiance, you take down the #1 seed, a top 5 team in the world, a #1 seed at the European minor, and they still failed to make the major, but a team I think we would gladly love to see in the future stay together, as many teams are going to try and sign, I imagine, some of these players from this Valiance roster. They actually met their demise, their final demise, in the lower bracket to Team Vitality. Best of 3 goes to map 3, match point. An amazing series to watch. Unfortunately enough, though, it actually is Hunter, Nexa, and those boys actually falling just short. So again, a crazy close series as well, but Team Vitality and ZywOo led the way. They actually qualify alongside ENCE Esports, and the CIS minor guys, it's Team Spirit, a lower bracket comeback alongside a Vanguard locking up those spots. It will be, though, fortunately enough for all you North fans who actually fell short to Vitality in a pretty conclusive series. They take map 1, Vitality just dominates the last 2 maps of that series. Nuke was actually, at one point in time, it was pretty painful to watch. Again, even on Inferno, it was not close whatsoever. Vitality certainly earned their spots. ZywOo stickers are coming for all of you guys. The return of many of those French players finally to a major, but it will be North in the 3rd place minor play-in guys. Alongside them, teams like Winstrike will confirm our other 2 minor play-in teams as well. North should be a very clear favorite to make the major. Do not worry, Valde certainly earned his spot. He could not carry that team far enough, but at that 4 minor play-in teams, there will be 4 teams there. 2 teams will make the major, and North will be a clear favorite. I hope I did not jinx that, because they certainly deserve a major, but this past weekend was absolutely shocking to see all the CS that happened, and some crazy things definitely going down with a lot of these teams. And very lastly, guys, in CSGO news, I guess we've seen this before happen with player threats, as well as players receiving their families receiving threats for losses out there. North did not qualify. We talked about this just a second ago. They'll be at the minor play-in though. They still will be a very clear favorite to qualify for the major, although them not directly qualifying right out of the gate caused some fans, if you're going to call them fans, or some very spirited individuals, actually contacting the players and the team on their Facebook page, as well as other social medias out there, saying some very weird words like you stinking flock of freaks. I've never heard someone say that, and obviously way worse things were also said. Let's try and not do this. I don't know if I need to tell you guys this. A lot of you, I hope all of you watching this will never actually take the time to send a death threat or any kind of threat to players or families. It's literally worthless, and it's also a good way to get some charges pressed against you if the player does pursue you even further. But yeah, it's crazy to see how inspirational some people are out there, whether they bet on the game or whether they're just fans of the organization, are disappointed they lost. This is not the way to help the situation. And again, I don't need to tell you guys this, but if you are one of those individuals who sent those messages, well, let's just try and back off, calm down, take a breath, and life goes on, man. But as always, that's gonna do it for CSGO News. My name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoyed today's episode. I will be back here tomorrow. We got more CSGO News to cover, some other interesting stories out there we'll certainly make note of. But on top of that, leave a comment down below. What was the biggest surprise you saw this past weekend? It can be how terrible the iBuyPower Masters event was. It can be a surprise player. I would say my biggest surprise was the fact that Wendigo didn't qualify. They were close, just as close as Mousesports was to making out of groups, unfortunately enough. But if I was being honest, my big surprise would definitely be Valde's performance. That guy seemingly came out of nowhere. Certainly, obviously, a very, very solid player, but this weekend dropping a 40 bomb, trying his best to carry that team, and that's why I very much hope that North roster can actually make the major on top of his back. But hope you guys all enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you all back here tomorrow morning, and bye.